It's the same way at Bougainville, or Kwajalein, or Tinian, Guam, Leyte. For hours, you watch and listen to the heavyweights put the slug on the neighboring nips with main battery, counter battery, and deep support fire. That's the sort of stuff that spreads cheer among the boys waiting to go in. And the destroyers, the lightweights, show you the fancy footwork, jabbing and sparring with a 5-inch stuff. You strain your eyes, squinting in the sun to watch the flyweight's top side peel off to scratch 1. Or more cargo ships they catch napping inshore. You feel real good about the pacing the boys with the wings give the beach, strafing the shoreline, jabbing the Japs in the underbrush with everything in the aircraft ordnance book. Off in the distance, somebody has another good idea. They lower celestial haymakers in the form of 500 and 1,000-pound bombs. You wonder how anything can live in those bombed and battered hideouts. But these guys know. And you know, too, that during the 5, 10, or 20 minutes it takes to drive to the beach from the line of departure, there'll still be Japs, live Japs. They'll be there to greet you with mortars, machine guns, or better, no matter how much scrap iron you throw at them. So you need a kind word and a comforting thought? Brother, you got it. A gunboat is the word for it. And take comfort in the thought that it's built to fill those 5, 10, or 20 minutes with a hurricane of light and heavy automatic weapons fire. It walks right in with the assault waves to neutralize and reduce the enemy's beach defenses. It pours a continuous fire at targets of opportunity. It blasts every foot of the beach within range with everything it can throw. And that's plenty. For this scrappy featherweight is dedicated to the proposition that the more firepower you bring to bear, the less apt the enemy is to be troublesome when the troops go ashore. They carry the proper medicine for pillboxes or landmines lurking near the water's edge. 20th century fireworks, rockets. These are designed to batter the beachhead to a helpless rubble. 120 in a single salvo from each gunboat to reduce casualties among the men whose job it is to move on over every westward leading stepping stone. Very fancy, that last. But how about finding a quiet spot somewhere to sort of study the book on this gunboat proposition? Okay? All right, Professor, if you please.
Converted LCILs decked out with rocket launchers, 20, 40, and 50 caliber machine guns saw action early in the Pacific Campaign, where they first took part in amphibious operations. These provided the information needed to perfect the tailor-made job, the Lcs L, Landing Craft Support Large Mark III. These highly maneuverable ships, called gunboats, have a forward draft of only 4 to 5 feet, so they can accompany landing craft through shallow water almost to the beach. The same hull construction makes her as fast and as seaworthy as an LCIL. She's among the smallest seagoing vessels to cross an ocean under her own power. She packs plenty of get up and go in 2 quads of diesel engines acting on twin variable pitch propellers. She has a maximum of 1,800 horsepower. She's no favorite even on a fast track, but 10.5 to 12 knots cruising and 16 knots maximum speed gets her there in plenty of time. With this ship, firepower is more important than horsepower. Her business is to deliver rapid support fire. For such a business, she mounts a 3-inch 50 caliber local control dual-purpose gun at the bow. Or, notice their forward, she may mount a single 40mm anti-aircraft gun on the bow or a twin 40mm AA gun in that position. At any rate, there's always a twin 40mm gun in number 2 position, which may be aimed and fired from the con or from the bucket immediately forward of the con by means of a Mark 51 director, one for each twin 40 if there are 2 on the forward section. In addition, she carries light automatic weapons. Midships on the superstructure deck, 3 men serve each of 2 20mm anti-aircraft machine guns, one on the starboard and the other to port. Each 20 is fitted with a Mark 14 gyro sight, which, if properly used, eliminates the guesswork in anti-aircraft gunnery. On the main deck aft, there are 2 more 20s fitted with Mark 14 sights, one on each side, port and starboard. So that gives us 4 20mm guns. Each one can fire 7.5 rounds in 1 second. That's 450 rounds a minute. Finally, near the stern, the gunboat mounts another twin 40mm that can fire 150 rounds per barrel per minute, like the twin 40 forward. It may be aimed and fired by a Mark 51 director in a bucket abaft the after 20s. A steel splinter shield provides ammunition stowage for each 40mm position. A similar shield protects each 20mm position. Cubic foot for cubic foot, she's among the most heavily armed vessels in the fleet. A pint-sized floating gun platform that can bring a lot of weapons to bear to protect the LVT and boat groups throughout an amphibious operation to permit the landing of the troops. Additional destructive power is supplied by the new type armament fired from these simple launching devices. These are assembled in 2 groups of 5, fixed athwart ships and located just abaft the bow gun. They are secured firmly to the deck by welded steel plates and reinforcements, making a total of 10 launchers fixed to release their charge in the direction of the bow. For that reason, the crew of whatever type gun is forward is responsible for handling and loading the 4.5 barrage rockets that go in the launchers to avoid being in the line of fire. These are fed one atop the other into the launchers the way these dummy rockets are being loaded here. With their fuses attached, they are set in motion by a knife-edge electric contact that connects with the base of each rocket as it reaches the bottom position, gravity fed downward by the weight of the rockets above it. Each launcher fires 12 rockets, and since there are 10 launchers, a total of 120 rockets can be fired on a target area in a single salvo. The launchers cannot be aimed except by aiming the bow of the ship. They are fixed at a 45-degree angle to the deck and firmly secured. The regular movement of the deck aids the dispersion of the registry on the beach. The rocket body is a bomb loaded with TNT fitted to a threaded pipe filled with a propellant charge. Those tags attached to the fuses of the rockets loaded there, like this one, are put there for you to read carefully. They're a constant double reminder of the terrible amount of damage you can do to the ship instead of the enemy if you don't take time to handle the rockets with the amount of care and skill with which they were made to be handled. So be savvy. Read them. I say again, read them. An electrical rocket firing control system provides two safety plugs, one in an electrician's locker in the deck house, the other in the con, where the gunnery officer is responsible for seeing that the forward section is cleared of all personnel before completing the circuit. A control panel in the con allows him to fire a single rocket for ranging purposes. Or the entire salvo can be fired for maximum effect on the target. Each rocket explodes on contact with the same lethal effect as a 105 millimeter shell or a 20-pound bomb. So much for the LCS L in terms of armament. Now look at some extra items that add up to make her an extra useful vessel. For salvage operations or towing, she carries a special heavy cable on the stern anchor winch. For navigation, there's a gyro compass repeater in the con, another in the pilot house, and another in the radio room. Below decks, in the engineering space, there's a distilling unit that can produce 1,000 gallons of fresh water a day. This is a Johnson P500 pump. There's one forward and one aft. Both can pump 500 gallons of water a minute at about 100 pounds pressure. They're gasoline-powered and portable for use anywhere on or off the ship. They can be rigged with 1.5 or 2.5-inch hose and used to pump out flooded compartments or as auxiliaries to the ship's firefighting system. Two Chrysler Hale pumps are located on the main deck astern. These are used to supply hose lines leading forward. Each is coupled to a manifold aft, which provides additional outlets and thence by means of 3.5-inch lines to a 7-outlet manifold on the forecastle immediately forward of the bow gun. Both the Johnson and the Chrysler Hale pumps utilize seawater supplied by suction lines leading overside. All told, the gunboat can bring about 2,400 gallons of water a minute to play for the purpose of fighting fires. As a matter of fact, experiments to test her value to the forces afloat as a firefighting ship may prove her useful in a dozen different ways to help solve complicated problems of damage control. One firefighting weapon is particularly outstanding. On the bow, a monitor with a 1 3/4-inch tip delivers 909 gallons of water a minute at 100 pounds pressure. Or with a 2-inch tip, 1,189 gallons at 100 pounds pressure. In addition, each gunboat has an allowance of 1.5 and 2.5-inch fog applicators in various lengths to make a screen behind which she can approach and smother oil or gasoline fires. A Bessler generator on the stern converts a special type fog oil into a heavy cloud of protective smoke which is useful in any screening operation. It can provide cover for demolition units working ashore or close inshore. It can provide convoy or force protection, particularly against enemy torpedo plane attacks. And most important, it can draw a curtain between the assault beach and the approaching boat waves to confuse and hinder enemy observation and fire control. So you've got to be handy at a lot of things to qualify as a member of the ship's company in good standing. You're expected to be better than average as an officer, of which you are 5, or as a member of the crew, of which you are 65. That includes 2 cooks. Nice guys, even though they always louse up the act. Oh yes, one more. On the ball, Mac, on the ball. From stem to stern, this is a ship for a crew to be proud of. The kind that takes action stations up front with the best of them when the stakes are high. A fighting ship in the finest tradition of a fighting navy.
That's to give you some idea what a gunboat is. Now about what a gunboat does in action. We're paying a visit to Island X in company with a seagoing caravan of LSTs loaded with men and tanks and landing craft the calling cards of amphibious war. On schedule, we deliver them to the transport area. We move aside to clear the fire support lanes. We're dispersed and circling to make a tough target for enemy aircraft. This is where we lie on D-1 day, when the softening up process begins. How does that sound to you, Professor?
The importance of naval gunfire support in amphibious operations is self-evident. Navy bombardments preceding the actual landing are standard practice.
You said it. And baby, you can pour on all you've got. For us, it means fewer Japs to slam lead at us later when we walk into the beach. For the men, same thing. Now what?
According to the operation order, stations are assigned each APA and AKA. On arrival at the assigned station, transports lie to and maintain position.
So what do? We head for the outfield and form part of a screen around the entire force. Sentry duty for our big brothers, and our little brothers, too. But wait a minute. Where are we now?
This is D-Day. A rapid debarkation of troops and material reduces exposure of the transports to enemy action during that period when they are most vulnerable.
In other words, this is no time to be either fat, dumb, or happy.
It is standard practice to debark from both sides of the ships when sea conditions permit. All boats are loaded at the rail or by other approved methods. As soon as they are waterborne, they will cast off and proceed to their rendezvous areas. In the meantime, strike and troop support missions may be flown by all types of aircraft.
What he means is the air around here is healthy for anything other than enemy aircraft. What time is it now?
It's time for the gunboats to be forming up in divisions, rockets loaded, and all guns manned and ready.
All right. We plot our course and speed and move in on a tangent toward the assembling assault force. Some of us from the left, some from the right. Now all of us, the gunboats and the landing craft, are heading for that well-known line, the line of departure. Every Joe with a date on the beach is thinking of what he's in for, wondering who's to cover him now that the bombing and shelling has been lifted to the flanks or further inland. All right, we'll show you. Button up and come on.
On signal from the control vessels, the first assault wave is dispatched from the line of departure for the beach.
And look who's tagging along. It's us in our little surprise packages. Maybe you're beginning to get the idea. This group takes station off your left flank. They swing into a line abreast formation. When the turn's completed, they're in position, fat and happy on both your flanks, running in on a parallel course at whatever speed you set.
The boat waves shall at all times maintain course and speed, interval and distance, responding to the tactical maneuvering signals of the boat wave commander.
Depend on it, whatever you do, we do. Now here comes that cover you worried about. At about 2,500 yards, as soon as our 40s will bear, we open up on the beach. Now do you see what you've got? Each twin 40 pumps 300 rounds of nasty stuff every minute now. And there are 2, maybe 3 twin 40s on each gunboat. Now watch this. That was a gunboat taking a pasting. At this stage of the game, about 2,000 yards out, we make bigger and better targets than you do. Chances are we'll be fighting for our lives as well as yours all the way in. Gun against gun. Boy meets chap. Each working against time to get the range. Both playing for keeps. At 12 to 1,500 yards out, we're closing fast now. We clear the forward section. Our radar and navigation data tell us we're just about in rocket range. So we all fire one, just to make sure. And we're on. Dead on. One by one now, we measure our distance with ranging rockets, feeling for the right time. I wish we could read your faces, you in the landing craft. Feeling relieved? You haven't seen anything yet. Salvo.
During their run from the line of departure to the beach, the LCS L3s shall keep station off the flanks of the assault waves and maintain a continuous fire with all weapons which can bear on the beach. When ensured that they are within range, they fire salvos of 4.5 rockets.
120 rockets in each salvo, bouncing along your beachhead to explode any landmines planted there. So thick as to destroy or stun the riflemen or machine gunners dug in near the shoreline. The more gunboats, the more rockets. The more rockets, the less for you to contend with when the ramp clatters down and you go prancing out. This is as close support fire could ever be, because by now all of us are only about 900 yards from the beach. That's as far as we can go. So we turn in column formation in a line parallel to the beach and continue to plaster the beachhead with automatic weapons fire. On both sides of you, right and left, we pick out targets of opportunity and knock them down, all the while maintaining most of our fire at the actual landing beach. At about 300 yards, you're practically in pay dirt. So we shift fire to your flanks, leaving a 1,000-yard safety area. This is to avoid firing too close over your heads. And you'd better be using them to remember your training. If you don't, it's too late now. You're on the beach. Now is when we pinpoint any remaining spheres of opposition within range. We pick targets of opportunity, right and left, and muss them up good. Even the cooks would throw potatoes if we let them. The same is happening on other beaches, on Green Beach, and Blue Beach, and Yellow Beach. As the troops pour ashore, the gunboats hurl a curtain of lead to the left and right of them, setting up a solid wall on either side to keep the enemy's head down till you get a chance to get in solid and take care of the necessary details. How's that look to you? Is that cover enough? What do you say, Professor?
The success of any landing operation depends on the close coordination of all units involved and in the maximum use of specialized weapons for the maximum protective and destructive effect.
Yep, but that's all we can do. We could say more about the LCS L3, how she smashes barges and chops up counterattacks, how she aids artillery spotters and destroys troops in inaccessible hideouts along the shore. But you'll be hearing more about her from time to time. It is respectfully submitted that her presence will be requested in future amphibious operations.